listen to me or not. I have to say, look, this is not healthy. I suggest you make these changes. But in sexuality education, that's not the case. The opposite is true. What they're saying is provide young people with information, let them decide, and you're not allowed to judge. In fact, you should respect their decisions. Okay. Now, this is a co-founder of SICUS. He said religious taboos were highly restrictive. Our whole belief system needed to be reconsidered. Traditional religion had failed in that it walled people in. It prescribed boundaries for thinking. He wanted to expand the boundaries of human sexuality. In fact, he wrote a sexual bill of rights in 1976. And one of those said, physical pleasure has worth as a moral value. I'm not sure what that means, but that's what he believed. Now this became very, very radical. And this was one of the vice presidents of SICUS, and he said, it is time to admit that incest need not be a perversion or a symptom of mental illness. This was reported in Time magazine, and this person that said this, Dr. Pomeroy, was on the board of directors of SICUS. Dr. John Money, also on the SICUS board of directors. A childhood sexual experience, such as being the partner of a relative or of an older person, need not necessarily affect the child adversely. I am not showing you all these things to shock you. I am showing them to you so you get a taste of the founding fathers and mothers of modern sexuality education and how radical their ideas were and how not based on health they were. They were based on changing society. How do you change society? By reaching children. So like I said, the number one priority of sex education is to promote sexual license. Now, let's go to what SICUS is doing these days. This is an interview, and I'm telling you about SICUS again. I'm not sure that you're aware that SICUS and Planned Parenthood Federation are behind the programs that we are encouraging you to reject. So this is, I'm going to show you, I'm going to demonstrate for you how they say one thing and then do another. So this was on the radio. The moderator said, you would agree that it would be best if kids didn't have sex in high school, am I right? And the representative, the director of public policy from SICUS answered, listen, absolutely. It is better for young people to wait to have sex. There is no question about that. And again, this is not up for debate. From a medical point of view, early sexual debut and multiple partners, which you're going to have more of if you start earlier, is a risk, is high-risk behavior. So that's what he said, right? But now let's look at what his organization says to young people. He said this on the radio to adults, to policymakers. Here is, you can find this online, it's a pamphlet called Talk About Sex for Kids, and it starts off in this way. Every human being has basic rights. Still, adults may say and do things that make young people feel like they don't have rights. It is important for you to know your rights so that you can stand up for yourself when necessary. At every point in your life, you can choose if and how to express your sexuality. Most sexual behaviors involve some level of risk. Not true, by the way, because if two people delay sexual behavior until they're adults and then they are in a committed, monogamous relationship, also called marriage, there is no risk of sexually transmitted infections. So it's not true that most sexual behaviors involve some level of risk, but they are leading kids to think that. It is up to you to determine how much risk you are willing to take. So that's like my saying to a young person, you know, when it comes to diet, there's many, many different choices. All diets carry some level of risk. You decide how much risk you want to take. You decide if you want to eat a lot of junk food and red meat and French fries. I don't know, whatever you have in your countries that are the equivalent of that, you decide. Now, since when do we do that in medicine? We don't do it. But this is sexuality education. More examples. This is a book just saying the real issue is to be comfortable with your decision every time. Do what you're comfortable with. No one can tell you if you're ready. You're the only one who knows whether you can handle it. Now, this website says you have the right to make your own choices and to have people respect them. So whatever you're doing sexually, your parents should respect your decisions, your teachers, your pastor, your priest, your imam, whatever it is, you should be respected for those decisions. I just want to remind you that in the Bali Youth Declaration, it uses the same kind of wording, that cultural and religious barriers should never present access to family planning, safe, et cetera, recognizing that young people have autonomy over their own bodies, pleasures, and desires. Let me just tell you about the adolescent brain. And this is information that we didn't have in the 60s or 70s or even 80s. This is new information that impacts or should impact the way that we are discussing sexuality with young people. And that is, well, this is actually an ad for car insurance. It says, why do most 16-year-olds drive like they're missing a part of their brain? Because they are. And it's actually been shown that the part of the brain that is like the CEO of the brain, it's thoughtful, it thinks carefully and slowly, and it considers pros and cons, it considers consequences. The rational, intelligent part of the brain develops last. It actually doesn't develop until a person's in their mid-20s. An adolescent is much more prone, when making decisions, to rely on the part of their brain that's based on instinct, emotion, impulsivity. And that's why so many of us who have kids, who have teenagers at home, we know they do really dumb things. And when you ask them about it, why did you do that? They say, and when you say to them, what were you thinking? They say, I guess I wasn't thinking. And you know what? It's true. That part of their brain is underdeveloped. So how then, knowing this, can we go to young people and say, look, here's all the information about reproduction, about sexually transmitted infections, about condoms, about abortion. Here's all the information. You decide. You know what's best for yourselves. Are you kidding me? The sexual impulse is an appetite. It's a wonderful appetite, we need to tell young people. It's wonderful and it's healthy, but like all appetites, it has to be restrained. There's a right time for it and a wrong time for it. So, and science affirms that. So, this is one of the many, many reasons why I'm so passionate about convincing people why sexuality education, at its very foundation, is both untrue. It's based on a social movement from the 60s and 70s that had to do with rights and had to do with sexual freedom. We know more now. We have to reject those programs.